We're going to go ahead and call the Senate Appropriations Committee to order. We've got the Office of Administration. Good morning, Senator. Thanks for being here. Now we're up to 3. Fantastic. We've got the Office of Administration whenever you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you in advance for allowing us to present our FY25 Office of Administration budget. This is Hannah Swan to my right. Hannah's our Department Budget Director and Legislative Liaison. Caroline Coulter is our Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel. She's back here. My name is Ken Zellers. I am the Commissioner of the Office of Administration. I've been with the state team for about 6 years. Before joining the Office of Administration, I was with the Department of Revenue, 3 of those years as the Director of Revenue. Before joining the state, I was with Anheuser-Busch InBev as Global Director of Operations, Brewing, and Quality. And prior to Anheuser-Busch with Citibank Finance. Born and raised in Missouri and proud of it, married with 2 children. So I was going to have each person come up from the departments, but we're a little tight, so I think I'll just do a quick intro of some of our departments. So Division of Accounting, Stacy Neal. Division of Budget and Planning, Dan Hogg. Division of Facilities, Maintenance, Design, and Construction, Brian Jansen. Division of General Services, Crystal Wessing. Information Technology, John Laurent, our CIO. John. Division of Personnel, Paul Buckley, our Director. Division of Purchasing, Karen Boger, our Director. Office of Child Advocate, Becky Ruth, our Director. Office of Equal Opportunity, Diana Hilliard. Where's Diana? Okay. We also have Jeremy Washington, our Comms Director. And there are several others present here today. I just wanted to give you some of the larger groups, but we have almost everyone here to try to answer all the questions that you may have. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with Hannah.
Do you have a preference on what order we go through it in terms of these books? Okay. So, Board of Fund Commissioners is House Bill 1. All of the debt that was included in House Bill 1 has been paid off. So this book is everything in it's been core reduced. There's a couple of supplemental items to transfer the excess cash in those funds to general revenue, but for FY25 there will be no House Bill 1. You want to go to employee benefits? Or do you want to go to book 1?
Oh, wait,
you can go either way.
This time, which book it is.
All right. Employee benefits. We'll do that real quick. Are you mostly wanting to hit new decision items when we go through these books? Okay, perfect. Okay, so for benefits, we consolidate benefits into one fund typically before we make payments. So for each of the new decision items, there are 2. There's both the transfer and then the actual where we're paying it out. Page 22 is OAS DHI contributions new PS transfer. This is basically all the new Medicare Social Security transfer authority that's needed as a result of new PS in the budget. And then page 35 is the actual payment authority for the new Social Security and Medicare payments as a result of new PS that's in the budget this year. Page 52. This is additional Mosier's transfer authority that's needed as a result of new PS in the budget. Page 55. This is the additional transfer authority that's needed for Mosier's as a result of the contribution rate increasing. It's going from 27.26% to 28.75%. Then page 64 and 67 are the corresponding payment for Mosier's, for the new PS in the budget and the contribution authority increasing. Page 142 is an MCHCP cost to continue transfer. Essentially, there are both healthcare increases and as a result of open enrollment, more individuals being enrolled in the program, there's some additional costs for MCHCP this year. And then page 155 is the corresponding payment authority that's needed for MCHCP. And that is benefits. All right, Office of Administration, Book 1. Page 7 is the governor's recommended pay plan that includes 3.2% pay increase for state employees as well as retention-based pay for shift personnel working in congregate care facilities. Page 65 is prescription drug monitoring program additional authority. Last year we requested a new NDI for funding this program and a portion of that funding was made one time. This is the funding that's needed to pay the contract for the vendor that's actually going to be running that program on an ongoing basis. Page 71 is a new decision item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 89 is a request for accounting staffing increase. Right now, we are implementing movers. Once our budget system goes live, unlike our previous accounting system that was more or less static, movers is going to be receiving updates on a regular basis, and there's going to be a lot of testing that needs to happen to make sure that everything is accurate and correct before those updates go into the system. And so there's going to be an increased administrative workload on the accounting staff once movers is actually live. Page 110, economic budget data subscriptions. Budget and planning is asking for $35,500 additional E&E to help cover increasing subscription and E&E costs that they've experienced in their office over the last decade. Page 140, citizen portal maintenance and support. Last year there was not last year, but I'm sure you all remember the $126 million that was appropriated out of ARPA when we first came forward and asked for the funding for digital government transformation. We basically said that there are going to be some ongoing costs from general revenue. And so this item is requesting the basically GR pickup that's needed associated with the ongoing costs with that project. Page 145. State Data Center Resiliency and Redundancy. Basically, this is a project to provide redundancy and failover for our current data center systems. A portion of this that we originally asked for in House Bill 5 was moved to House Bill 20 in the GovRec, so that the difference in the $12 million between the two, the other $12 million this one time is now in House Bill 20. But basically, this is funding to relocate the data center. Right now, it's in the basement of the Truman Building. It's not a great location for it. It's outdated. We don't have the ability to fail over applications. And as we're modernizing and transforming state data, it's been with the Digital Government Transformation Project, this has been identified as a priority that we need to be able to have all of our data backed up in a secondary location. Page 150. Office productivity and collaboration tools. Microsoft 365 is a subscription-based service. Essentially, this request, all of the consolidated agencies have been using standalone Microsoft licenses since 2016 that are at end of life in 2025. We're no longer able to just purchase licenses and have them until the next version comes out. Everything's going subscription-based, and so this is the cost that's needed on an ongoing basis for all of the state agencies to have Microsoft 365. Page 170, IT asset management system. Typically, IT assets can be characterized as hardware or software that we own. Right now, ITSD is trying to manage all of the state agencies' licenses through manual tracking and spreadsheets. What they really need is a tool that can tell them which agencies have which license and how they're being utilized. So if an agency were to reach out to IT and say, how many licenses do we have or who's using them, right now IT doesn't have any idea. So this will give better visibility to ITC and the state agencies about all of the different IT licenses that they're using and who's actually using them and if they're being used efficiently. Page 175 is a new decision item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 179. OA has experienced an increased need from numerous state agencies for additional GIS resources. Rather than having all of the state agencies ask for those individually, it would be better for OA to provide better resources around GIS from an enterprise level. Basically, it would provide a single source of truth about different location-based data. Right now, in their GIS shop, ITSD has been getting lots of requests for additional GIS work that they're not able to fulfill just because we don't have a whole lot of resources around GIS. Over time, we've had new decision items that have a GIS component like Next Generation 911, but we don't have an increase in the GIS infrastructure that goes with that. Just for an example, agencies that do field inspections, they inspect hospitals, they inspect all sorts of things, would like to be able to map that out and keep track of all of the different places that they've inspected, for example. So there is a lot of need for that. Another component of this is with our digital government transformation project, it would be really good for us to have a single source of truth about all of our state agency buildings and assets. And so when citizens log into the portal, they could see services that are near them, for example. So this is an increasing need that just hasn't been dealt with in a long time. Page 185 is another new decision item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 212, DESI Foundation formula rewrite. This is a CITGC approved project that's requesting funding to replace the DESI Foundation formula calculation system. Right now, DESI is responsible for distributing $5 billion in state funds, and there are a number of different payments that or calculations that go into all of that payment distributions. They're unique to statute, and right now they're having to do a lot of manual effort and a lot of manual calculations to make sure that the payments are accurate and the data is accurate, and it's a very heavy lift on their end. And anytime they have to make changes to the foundation formula system, there's a lot of manual effort in that as well, and so they're needing a new modern system to help with that. Page 247. This was an item that was requested to allow the Department of Ag to upgrade their system. We've identified a different funding source for this project. There was a new decision item approved last year, additional IT resources. They're going to go ahead and utilize that funding, so they're no longer requesting this item. Page 259, this was a new decision item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 272, DED project tomorrow fund switch. Last year, OA requested GR funding for this project. It was a CITGC approved project to update DED's 34 systems and database tools that they use to administer grants and tax credits. During the process, that got changed to the Department of Economic Development's one of their specific funds that that doesn't have enough authority for or enough cash in it for the number of different appropriations they have out of that fund. And so they're requesting this project be appropriated out of general revenue so that it can move forward. Page 291. This is requesting additional federal authority to allow ITSD to utilize some of Dolar's federal ARPA funding that they got specifically for updating their U-Interact system. Page 296. This is another CITGC approved project. This is another one that we have an a funding source that we're going to use, so we're no longer asking for this funding. Page 303. This is another item that we're moving forward, but we're no longer asking for the funding. Page 318. This is an item for the veterans home. They are required under statute to provide adequate supervision and assistance devices to prevent accidents. Their anti-wander systems were installed about a decade ago, and they're no longer able to get parts for it, and the system's outdated. So they're asking for funding to upgrade the 6 veterans homes at a cost of $60,000 each. The GovRec changed this to being funded out of the Missouri Veterans Home Fund. Page 325. This is an item not recommended by the governor. Page 331. This was an item for the Missouri Veterans Commission to be able to connect to the Federal Health Information Exchange. They have been, they used paper medical records that were converted to electronic records in the early 2000s, but they're not able to connect to the Health Information Exchange, which would make sending and receiving records much easier for them. The GovRec changed this again to the Missouri Veterans Homes Fund. Page 337. DPS nurse call system. This was an item not recommended by the governor. All right, book 2, page 350. This is an item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 357. DOC offender management system. This is another CITGC approved project that would allow DOC to obtain a new offender management system. Right now they have a number of outdated systems that are very difficult to use. For example, when they're trying to set up a new offender's case, they have to move back and forth between 7 different systems 14 times and make 18 different actions just to set up a new offender in their system. It's very difficult to use, very outdated. The difference between the requested amount and the governor's recommended amount is that this is estimated to be a 5-year project, and so the governor's recommended amount is basically a fifth of the total cost that would stay in the budget for 5 years until the project is completed. Page 433 is an item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 469, the employee referral program is a program that was added to the budget last year that we've just launched recently. Essentially, this is to incentivize state employees to act as recruiters and bring other non-state employees to come work for the state. Employees who successfully refer a candidate are eligible for $250 or $500 for difficult to fill positions when a new team member hits the 90-day tenure. The governor, if you look at the core for this program that's on the previous page, the governor's recommendation was to cut out the federal and other funds and backfill that with general revenue. Essentially, there were a number of agencies that had concerns about their federal and other funds being used for this, and also the initial amount that was added last year didn't include the Department of Corrections, so the GovRec also added funding to allow the Department of Corrections to participate in the program. Page.
I've got one quick question on that.
Yep.
I was just talking with my other co-chair, vice chair over here to my left. Are we eligible, we as elected officials, are we eligible for this referral bonus for getting people to run for these hard-to-fill seats that we currently hold?
I have no idea.
That's probably a no. I'd say that's a no.
I don't know.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
All right.
Hard to fill with quality.
All right, page 533, leasing non-count fund source. This is a request for additional non-count other authority that would allow FMDC to consolidate their payments for leased facilities into a single fund before they make out payments. This is how state-owned and institutions are currently handled, where it's consolidated into one fund before the payments are made. That would be more efficient for them both in making payments and for reporting, and is also going to be needed for the new mover system. Page 537. Safety program. OA requested funding for a safety program. One of the things that FMDC has been focusing on is improving worker safety, and FMDC is a top priority. This item was not recommended by the governor, except for the initial amount that was included in here also included E&E to purchase AEDs and put them in all state office buildings. That portion of this new decision item was moved to House Bill 20, and then otherwise it was not recommended. Page 543, one area that FMDC has also identified is the need to improve security across all of our state buildings and leased facilities. The original request included 2 positions to oversee the contracted security guard force and to develop and implement security practices that are the same across all buildings, but it also included some E&E for installation of physical security in the buildings. The GovRec included the E&E, but did not include the additional positions.
Senator Searpoint.
I'm just curious. I keep hearing not recommended by the governor. Don't you work for the governor? I don't understand how this works, I guess, maybe.
So when we put together the department request in the fall, there are some items that we will ask for that through the process of the governor putting together his recommended budget, he doesn't necessarily recommend all of those. And so if you want me to talk about any of the new decision items that the governor didn't recommend that we had originally included in our department request, I can.
I mean, these were included, and he
They
said
were
no.
items that the department originally coded.
Well,
we requested in our department request. When the governor goes through the process of prioritizing how much state funding is available across the board for all agencies, they have to make decisions about some items that may not get funded.
And you're saying our decisions are better.
I'm saying what?
You're saying the department is better positioned to make these recommendations, even so he said no.
Well, I'd like to add to that. So I think that the department itself is in a better situation to actually see, our requests at the ground level. And with respect to the governor's office, they look at everything. They're looking at the entire state and making sure that they can prioritize all the departments, because we only have so much money. Mm-hmm. And if we recommend it at the ground level and it's not recommended by the governor, we'll do the best we can. But I think the way that the governor has the ability to look across the entire state where we may not be able to is an advantage there, and I think it.
Senator May. Oh, Senator Searpoint, are you done? Fantastic. Senator May.
I don't know if this is the proper moment to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm looking at the property at 5707 Wilson. Did we sell that property
Is that the, what's the,
in St. Louis City?
that property is under contract right now. And it's been under contract since, I believe, November of last year, and there's a 270 or a 290-day like grace period in there to where, we're doing some geological work in there, some core drilling and some other things, but that will be final in August, I believe, of this year, if everything goes through.
So they're
And-
never going to do the environmental cleanup that the area needs?
Well, has already been a environmental cap put on there, but I think that the core drilling that we're doing will tell us how far down that we need to, if we need to go any deeper, because the proposed site is going to actually, that's going to go over that. It may be to the point where it's adequate as it is, but the core drilling samples will tell us whether it is or not.
Okay, so I'm going to share with you some pictures that the neighbors have sent me in reference to that property. It's open, they say people are in it and all of that, and so that's the concern. And they sent me these pictures this week.
Okay, agree. It is a concern, and I would like you to know that 2 weeks ago I was also there and I visited the property, and have had several conversations with some of the property owners that their property backs up to that area. So what we've done in the meantime, in attempt to mitigate some of those issues, is as of, I believe it was last Friday, we have full-time security in front of the building and behind the building. Then the residents are breaking the windows out faster than we can repair the windows.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've done is we also have a crew out there boarding up the windows. They've also have holes in the ceiling of that property. We're boarding up the ceiling, putting wire up there. We have to get everyone off the property. Recently, there is a group of individuals that are camped in the back between the highway and the building. And for those who are not familiar with the property, it's a property that's about 5.5 acres on the border, or pretty close to the border of the city and the county. I don't want to say exactly where it's at, but
St. Louis
it's
Field.
become an eyesore, and it is a problem. But I want you to know that we are addressing it, and we are doing some things to try to mitigate some of those issues, and to make sure that the property is secure until we can transfer and make the final sale in August.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Page 549, OA Lab Campus Manager. One of the projects that was added in the FY23 ARPA budget was for the design and construction of a multi-agency laboratory campus. FMDC anticipates that they will need 9 FTE to operate this campus once it's operational. There were 3 FTE added to the budget last year, and they're requesting 1 more FTE right now while it's in construction, and they'll request the remainder in a future year. Page 553, this was an item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 558, there's a request in House Bill 13, statewide real estate, for a building that's on the Division of Youth Services property. There was water damaged, and they're wanting to go ahead and get that building up and operating to be used again. This is just the funding that's needed for the utilities in that building. Page 562, state-owned warehouse. In the FY24 budget, there was $26.3 million that was approved to build or purchase a 150,000 square foot warehouse that was going to be phase 1 of consolidating some of the leases that this right now, or up till this point, we've been leasing approximately 630,000 square feet of warehouse space in Cole County. So we are using the funding that was approved to purchase 2 warehouses that are adjacent to each other. This item and the one on page 567 are the requests that are needed to operate those. Essentially, we're moving funding from the leased section in FMDC that will be core cut eventually to the state-owned section, because these will become state-owned warehouses rather than leases. And that is the end of Book 2. All right, Book 3, page 726. The Office of Child Advocate handles a large amount of work. They review foster care cases, unsubstantiated hotline investigations. They mediate between parents and schools about child abuse. They are asking for an additional position and some funding to complete additional circuit reviews. One of their statutory functions is to complete circuit reviews, but they're extremely time consuming when they go into a circuit and they interview individuals in the circuit to see how the child welfare system is functioning as a whole. Right now with their daily caseloads, they can only complete 1 to 2 circuits reviews a year, and there are a large number of circuits with complaints that aren't getting, that they aren't having the ability to go in and review. So they're asking for additional funding to be able to do some additional circuit reviews. Page 743, CTF grant specialist fund swap. There was a position that was added to the Children's Trust Fund in a previous year from ARPA. They are requesting to have that core reduced and picked up from their dedicated other funding source. The offsetting core reduction is on page 739. Page 822. This is a part of our debt section, and a lot of these sections where we have core reductions as we're paying off debt, we do have small fluctuations due to interest and such. So page 822 and 838 are both small increases that are needed just to continue paying on the existing debt. Page 913, Missouri Sheriff's Retirement Fund. In FY24, there was an appropriation. Essentially, statute was changed to allow the Sheriff's Retirement Fund to receive appropriations as they were losing another type of funding source. However, the bill language in 24 was made to a nonprofit, so we're asking for that funding as a supplemental in this current year to correct the language, and then the governor's recommendation is also to give an additional $2.5 million to the Sheriff's Retirement Fund in FY25.
Hey, Hannah, did
Yeah.
you skip 903, that little I-44 line?
Did I?
Yeah, about 14 million bucks.
Sorry
We got the
about that.
$1,500,
Hey,
you
nope,
know,
sorry.
small ones.
Let me
but
find it.
that's the
Which
14
page
million.
did you say? Yep, I did. 903. Yep, sorry. Okay, I-44 Improvement Fund Transfer. This fund transfer is essentially taking the interest that's currently accruing in the OAI 70 fund. The governor's recommendation is to transfer 14 million of that to the newly created OAI 44 Improvement Fund out of the project interest in I-70. Okay. Yep. Sorry. Thank you for catching
No, that's
that.
fine. On 913, I thought we made this $2.5 million one-time appropriation last year. So why are we back doing this again?
Okay. So essentially,
I didn't remember it being a 2-year deal.
It was-
I thought
it was-
a 1-year deal, and we put it in 2 different places. The governor vetoed one, if I remember right. Yes. And what are we doing here?
okay. So what we're doing is essentially last year there was an appropriation for the Sheriff's Retirement Fund. However, the appropriation was, okay. Well, the appropriation was made, the one that was in House Bill 5 was designated to a nonprofit. And the statute changed it so that the actual Sheriff's Retirement Fund could receive that funding. And so we are not going to be able to get that out the door this current year without a supplemental. So we have a supplemental request for that to fix the language. And then the governor's recommendation was to give them another $2.5 million in FY25. So that would be, they would get 2 payments if this were to be approved. Okay. Page 924. There was,
Hannah, can you tell me why we couldn't get the $2.5 million out in the whole fiscal year, and we have to do it in a supplemental? Dan, maybe.
so
you can answer that.
statute was changed last year. 57.952 was changed to allow the Sheriff's Retirement Fund to receive appropriations, but the bill language directed that funding to a nonprofit, not to the Sheriff's Retirement Fund, to an association.
No, it was my bill that made it to where
I thought it was your
could
bill.
accept
So
it.
did you mess this up?
Yes.
Then we got to do this again?
No, if you just do what I do, what I say, you know how I am. It's perfect.
So don't use the words in statute. Just go with what you're telling me now. Yeah, that makes
Benevolent
sense.
dictatorship works really well.
The-
I'd be
Kind of
benevolent.
how we run this committee too. All right, we'll figure it out.
okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Page 924. In FY22 and 23, we distributed over $440 million to the non-entitlement municipal districts. The federal government requires us to return any of those unclaimed funds. So this is an appropriation that we're requesting just to return the funding that was not claimed by the municipal districts. We also have a supplemental request due to timing. We weren't sure whether we would be paying that out this fiscal year or in FY25. And so we may end up not actually needing it in this and prefer it in the supplemental. Page 1004, elected officials transition. This is funding that's needed for the transition following the election, and the amounts are dictated in statute for the transition costs. And that is the end of Book 3. Yep. All right, statewide real estate. On page 1, there's a summary of our square footage by lease facilities, state-owned, and institutional facilities. If you're interested, the first new decision item is on page 212. A lot of these requests in House Bill 13, you will have seen a corresponding request in House Bill 5. Essentially, House Bill 13 is where they collect the cash and then they make those payments, some of them out of House Bill 5. And so page 212 is the House Bill 13 authority that's needed as associated with the increase in the Mosher's contribution rate. Page 215 is the House Bill 13 increase needed associated with the MCHCP healthcare costs increasing. Page 218 is the House Bill 13 increase needed associated with the governor's recommended pay plan of 3.2%. Page 220 is the consolidated warehouse funding. As I mentioned before, we are purchasing 2 warehouses that will allow us to collapse warehouse or the leased payments that we're making right now for warehouse space. Both this one and page 224 are the funding that is needed to operate those warehouses as state-owned warehouses. We will have some core reductions as those leases get collapsed in the future. Page 228 is the security program. As I mentioned in House Bill 5, the governor's recommendation was to increase the E&E for physical security in our buildings. The difference there is those positions that were requested for security were not recommended. The safety program, as I mentioned, was not recommended by the governor, with the exception of the AEDs that are moved to House Bill 20, as those were a one-time purchase. Page 238 is the increase in House Bill 13 needed for the operation of the OA lab campus that I mentioned. In House Bill 5, the FMDC is going to need additional positions to operate that lab campus once it's up and running. This year, they're just asking for 1 more while it's still under construction. Page 241, DYS Treatment Center. There is a cottage on Hillsborough, as I mentioned, that was not been used as a result of water damage for a couple of years. They would like to get that building restored. This is the funding that's needed for the utilities once that building is up and running. Page 244, the state auditor's office is requesting additional space in the St. Louis and Springfield areas. They're needing additional auditors as a result of increased demand for audits around the state, and they're asking for additional space as a result of that need. Page 248 is an item that was not recommended by the governor. Page 251 was a request to fund switch a payment that's currently being made out of a specific DHSS fund. That item was not recommended by the governor. Page 254 was a request from Department of Corrections, and 259 was a request from Department of Corrections for additional lease space, and those were not recommended by the governor. So House Bill 17, these are reappropriations. There are not new decision items in House Bill 17. All of these are reappropriations for projects that were approved in a previous year. Do you want me to just go through the tabs and hit the highlights? Yep. Essentially, the way this book is organized, there is a summary report for each of the agencies at the front, and then there are backup pages that give additional information about each of these projects that are being reappropriated. The majority of these projects that are in House Bill 17 are new items that were added last year or the previous year. So DESI, there's 8 items for DESI. The first 2 are projects that were added in FY23 for a building of a special acre school and Autumn Hill. The other 6 items were all projects that were added in last year's budget. Page 12, higher ed and workforce development. There are 10 items. The 5 were originally appropriated in FY22 from budget stabilization funds. Page 24, MoDOT. There are 2 items that were added in last year's budget, one for low volume roads and one for improvements at a Warrensburg airport that are being reappropriated. Page 27, OA. There are 18 items. Many of these are for various repairs around the Capitol. Page 48 is agriculture section. There are 7 items from GR and budget stabilization funds. These were for state fair bathrooms, installation of some charging stations, a number of construction at their campgrounds and other sites, etc. Page 57 is the DNR natural resources park section. There are a total of 66 items. The majority of these were funded out of DNR specific funds. Many of these were from bond funds. In FY22, DNR bonded for a variety of revenue generating projects at state parks and campgrounds, and so a lot of those are still being worked on and being reappropriated here. Page 134 is the conservation section. There are 4 items from Conservation Commission Fund for statewide conservation projects. Page 139 is the ED section. There are 6 items from GR or budget stabilization funds. These were projects that were added in FY24 for Hammond's Field improvements, South Loop Design Construction Project, and Innovation Community Center to establish cybersecurity training centers, and Warrensburg Industrial Park and Riverside Amphitheater. Page 146.
Mr. Chair,
Senator May.
question. What is the Riverside Amphitheater? Where is that?
Second.
Is it? Okay, really? Is it? Okay. Well, thank you. He answered the question
Okay.
for me.
All right. Page 146 is the public safety section. There are reappropriations for the Troop A headquarters project as well as security upgrades at a variety of different troop headquarter buildings. Page 151, Public Safety Veterans Commission. There are 4 items. These were all added in FY24. The first 2 were from Veterans Commission CI Trust Fund for construction of a wall, and the next 2 are from Budget Stabilization Fund. These are for Veterans Highway Attraction and St. Louis Public Access. Page 156 is the National Guard section. There are 15 items. The majority of these are from budget stabilization funds or their department-specific federal funds for a variety of statewide projects. There are also 2 items originally in FY23 from general revenue for construction of a Bell Fountain Neighbors Readiness Center and an Albany Readiness Center. Page 176 is the Department of Corrections section. These are 2 items from general revenue. Both are projects that were added in FY24 for design and construction of a new Southwest Regional Supervision Center and to install chilled water loop at the Fulton Correctional Center. Page 179 is the DMH section, Department of Mental Health. There are 11 items. The first 2 are for construction of a warehouse at the Southeast Mental Health Center from budget stabilization funds and demolition at Biggs from the Fulton State Hospital bond proceed funds. The rest of these are new projects that were added in FY24. Page 192, the DSS section. There are 13 items from GR. The first 2 were added in FY23. The rest of these were new projects that were added in FY24. Then 208, there is 1 item for the Lieutenant Governor's Office. This was a new item that was added in FY24 for the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Those are reappropriations. House Bill 18 is the capital improvements, maintenance, and repair. The majority of their requests in House Bill 18 are from the Facilities Maintenance and Reserve Fund. It was the fund that is specifically created for repairs and renovations at state facilities that's funded by a transfer from general revenue. There are also some federal and other funds in this book that support some of the specific agency projects. And there are also reappropriations for maintenance and repair projects that were appropriated in a previous fiscal year. Page 4 is DESI section. There are a total of 26 items for repair and renovations at DESI facilities statewide. Again, for each of these, there's a summary page and there's a backup for each project. These are things like parking lot repairs, replacing playground tiles, replacing steam heating units, exterior door replacements, etc. Page 35 is the Department of Revenue, Missouri Lottery Commission Assets section. There is one request. This is a reappropriation from FY23 for a roof replacement project at a lottery headquarters building. Page 37. This section includes the constitutionally required transfer from GR to FMRF. The GovRec included an additional $100 million in transfer authority to provide funding for some of the deferred maintenance needs around the state. Page 39, there is the statewide section. There are 28 items. This includes funding for responding to unplanned or emergency maintenance issues. It also includes surveys, appraisals, space utilization, and energy conservation projects. Page 76 is the OA section. There are 32 items. The majority of these are from FMRF, although there are also a couple in here from the Missouri Capital Commission Capital Preservation Fund that are reappropriations from last year. The majority of these are for repairs and renovations of state assets, state office buildings that are around the state. Again, things like plumbing replacements, rooftop replacements, etc.
So I think this is the spot that we had given about $50 million worth of authority. I thought we were entering into some sort of purchase of the MoDOT building next door. Where are we on that project?
So at this point, we have not signed a contract. We did receive a couple of appraisals from Missouri Department of Transportation. Our legal department was reviewing those.
So wait a minute. The people we're buying the building from were giving us the appraisal?
Well, yes.
Fantastic.
But that was the start. That was the start. And I respect where you're going, but we are going to have an independent appraisal as well. Those appraisal companies, I mean, they when they give us the appraisal, they are giving us an appraisal that was performed by an independent company. Their reputation rests on those. I mean, they're pretty darn, accurate and legit. But we are going to go ahead and get our own appraisal on the same properties, and it would not just be the MoDOT building. It would be the MoDOT building, and that would be accompanied by the what's that building called?
Millbottom.
Yeah, Millbottom building. They're both together. We're currently doing some renovations in the Millbottom building of about $3.5 to $4 million. So that will be taken into consideration and be taken off of the purchase price should we proceed with that purchase. But just like any other property, when the opportunity presents itself, we're going to look in, we're going to investigate it and make sure that it's a good deal, and it's a good deal for the state, and it makes sense for our long range plan about we're going to need some swing space, we're going to need to move people around, and I believe that would be an opportunity for us to purchase that building. But we have not purchased it at this point.
Do you see us purchasing that within this fiscal year? Because the authority was granted in the FY24 budget. I don't know that the authority is going to be granted again in the FY25 budget.
I don't know that I can answer that.
Okay.
All right. Page 114 is the disaster reimbursement section. This allows FMRF to be expended in the case of a natural disaster or unforeseen event, and then for the state to be reimbursed if there's insurance or a federal payment or something else that can be used for disaster recovery. Page 116 is the agriculture section. There are 10 requests from FMRF for repairs and renovations at agriculture assets around the state. There's one new item to address deferred maintenance at a building at the state fair, and the rest of these are reappropriations. Page 128 is the DNR section. There are 5 requests from FMRF for repairs and renovations at statewide geological survey assets. One is new for repair at one of their annex buildings in Rolla, and the rest of these are reappropriations. Page 134 is the DNR section. There are 66 items for repairs and renovations at parks statewide. The majority of these are from DNR-specific federal and other funds. Page 211 is the conservation section. There are 7 requests from the Conservation Commission Fund for maintenance and repair at conservation assets around the state. Page 220 is the labor and industrial relations section. There are 3 requests for critical maintenance and repair at Doler assets around the state. Page 224 is the Public Safety Highway Patrol section. There are 38 requests from highway transportation funds for maintenance and repair at highway patrol assets around the state. Page 271 is the DPS Veterans Commission section. There are 7 items from FMRF and the Veterans Commission CI Trust Fund for maintenance and repair at Missouri Veterans Commission assets around the state. Page 280 is the National Guard section. There are 16 requests from FMRF and one of the National Guard's federal funds for repair and renovation at National Guard facilities statewide. Page 300 is the Department of Corrections section. There are 41 requests from FMRF for repairs and renovations at correctional facilities around the state. Quite a few of these are for fire alarm system replacements. Page 349 is the DMH section. There are 41 requests. The majority are from FMRF. One is from Fulton State Hospital bond proceeds funds. These are for repairs and renovations at DMH facilities around the state. Again, things like security enhancements, concrete sidewalks, chiller, cooling systems, etc. Page 397 is the DSX section. There are 20 requests. The majority are from FMRF, although there's a couple of DSS's specific federal funds. These are for a variety of repairs and renovations at DESI facilities statewide, parking lot repairs, boiler replacements, etc. And that is the end of House Bill 18, Maintenance and Repair. If there are no questions, move to House Bill 19. There is a summary overview on page 1 that summarizes the capital improvement request by state agency and by fund type. Page 2 is the Office of Administration section. The first request for $52.3 million is for restoring and preserving the historic Missouri State Penitentiary. There is a handout that was passed around with some information about that proposed project if you want to look at it or have questions. The second item on this list, we are also asking for $6 million in new authority that would allow us to respond to unplanned or unforeseen needs that arise. Right now, if there was a property that would come up for sale that we would be able to purchase in order to collapse a lease, and it was potentially a great deal for the state, we don't have the ability to buy those properties when they come up because we would have to go through the entire year, the legislative process, and then they're not on the market anymore. So FMDC would really like to have a little bit of unprogrammed authority that would allow them to make those types of purchases for small things that are less than $6 million if something arises. It would also allow them to make renovations or changes for state agencies if there was a need that arose in the middle of the year that they weren't aware of at the beginning of the fiscal year. So that's a new request this year. And there is also a request for $1.3 million from an ag protection fund for an addition to the existing feed and seed laboratory. They need some additional office space that they don't currently have. No questions about any of those? Then we will move to page 6. Natural Resources section. There are 7 requests from State Parks Earning Fund and a DNR specific federal fund for statewide parks construction projects. This is to cover real estate transaction costs, state parks construction and to allow donated funds to be spent on state park construction projects. There is also an item requesting authority to improve accessibility at parks around the state. Page 15 is the conservation section. There's one item requesting funding for statewide conservation projects from the Conservation Commission Fund. Page 17 is the, is the National Guard section. There are 3 items from general revenue for property acquisition of the Jefferson Barracks. Basically, St. Bernadette's right now is closing. That property shares a boundary with Jefferson Barracks National Guard Station. There are several buildings. It would allow them to have some additional space for building parking for some of their military vehicles. They've looked at this, and it would be a great deal for them to be able to acquire this property much more cheaply than they could renovate anything that they currently have existing, and it would give them a lot more space, which they currently need. And then the other 2 items would allow the National Guard to accept federal funds for statewide construction or for statewide projects for the National Guard. There is also a request for infrastructure and security at St. Joseph Rosecrans National Air Guard Base. Page 21, there is one item from the Department of Corrections from general revenue for HVAC improvements at statewide correctional facilities. And that is House Bill 19.
So I think I think the only other thing we've got, Dan, you're probably coming up on House Bill 20 to run through it. Does the committee have this spreadsheet, or are we getting it right now? Hope you have 3 copies. 13 people on the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Yep. Dan, whenever you're ready.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we have a spreadsheet of just the changed items in House Bill 20. Instead of going through all 6 books, we thought this would be a little easier. So I'll just get right into it here. The first item is our state agency COVID response. We're asking for $20 million here. This is just in case there are other pandemic or other public health issues. The one thing I will say about this item is that we have actually over-allocated the ARPA funds by this $20 million. There's no cash behind this. We just want this authority in case something comes up. If something were to come up, we would have to scale back some of the other spending in here. But this is just so if something happens when you're not in session, we can react quickly and don't have to call a special session. The next item is the Fulton State Hospital, the Biggs building renovation. We are removing that item. The next item below that, the Rockbridge Day Treatment Center, we're also removing that item. The Superstart Preschool in Columbia, this is just a change to the language. Tomorrow you'll also see this change in the supplemental, but we needed to be able to identify that a little more precisely to get that money out. The next one is the moving out of House Bill 20, $55.8 million into House Bill 2 for the pre-K that was put in last year. For whatever reason, this was put in House Bill 20, but we're going to move it to House Bill 2. Similarly, with the call optimization, this is $3 million that was put into House Bill 20 last year. For call center optimization, we're moving that to House Bill 5. The next 2 items sort of go together. We're removing the Ozark Technical College airframe and power plant maintenance item. We feel that's better as a MoExcels item, so you'll see that in House Bill 3 as MoExcels. So it's not going away, but we feel like that fits the criteria better there. But because that then takes away their only CI project, we are adding the next project here, which is their Center for Workforce and Student Success. So those sort of work together there. The next one is the Missouri State University Reynolds Complex. This is a project that they are asking to replace their existing CI project, the Center for Transformational Education for Life, Physical Health, and Health Sciences. They were able to secure both grant funding and federal grant funding and donations to complete that. So since that was completed, they asked us if we could change their project, same dollar amount. The next one for Truman is basically the same thing. They were able to get grant funding for their current project. So they're asking if they could switch the same amount to their Kirk Student Access and Success Center. And then the third of those, the last one that's similar, is Missouri Western also wants to do their library hub for student success. They're going to replace the Covenant Technology Alliance Center, which they were able to fund with donations. The next one, the soybean crushing facility, the facility turned down this funding, so we were removing it from the bill. The Biofuel Infrastructure Incentives Program, this is a $4 million item for biofuels. There's currently $4 million in the budget. This is not a reappropriate. This is an additional $4 million to that amount that's currently in the budget. The St. Louis County Bank stabilization, funding. The Metropolitan Sewer District declined this funding, so we're removing it from the budget. We are asking for some additional funding for ARPA staff in DED. This is not any more staff, but we just need them to work a little longer through the ARPA period than we had originally thought because of audit requirements and some of those kind of things. The next one is additional staff for FMDC with all the increased projects they have. They need additional project managers. This increase is offset by a core reduction from accounting's ARPA line. The next several are all items that we were requested in the regular operating budget by departments, but they were one-time funding, so we are proposing to fund these out of ARPA. The first one is replace 3 vehicles in DOR. You can see there at the bottom the model years that we're replacing. After that, we have the elderly and handicapped transportation assistance within MoDOT. This is $6 million. It will help them match funds to purchase additional transit vehicles in rural, small urban, and urban areas. This is like your OATS kind of providers. The data center resiliency and redundancy, Hannah told you about the ongoing piece of this that's in the budget. This is the one-time piece for the sort of the site there and the equipment that we need, the technology equipment. So we're funding the one-time piece out of ARPA. We have purchase of 113 automated external defibrillators for state-owned buildings. So this is a safety issue for us to have those defibrillators at state buildings to be able, in case we have a emergency there. We're proposing that one-time cost out of ARPA. In ag, we have the meat and poultry inspection team expansion. We're paying the ongoing cost out of this out of House Bill 6 in ag, but this is their vehicles and other E&E that they need to do this. We're seeing a pretty big expansion in the number of these meat processing facilities, and if we don't inspect them, they can't sell their meat. Feed control laboratory remodel and equipment. So this is different equipment for our feed lab within ag. We are also then requesting $150,000 to upgrade our octane engines, which is what tests the gas make sure that it's the right octane that they're advertising. We are also proposing to buy a large-scale truck with hoist system. This is the truck that goes and makes sure all the commercial scales are accurate. And then we are also asking for the state land survey archive writer. This is a machine that we need to replace. The current one's outdated and can't really interface with the new modern equipment we have. We are proposing also in DR buying a critical minerals core scanner. Again, critical minerals is something that I think we're trying to focus on here in Missouri as an emerging industry. You'll see next there the McCracken Core Library at Missouri S&T in Rolla. We are proposing some either land acquisition for construction of a new rock core library and research center. So that's $5 million. You see now we're moving into DPS. These are replacing radios for Capitol Police. This would be 35 portable radios for Capitol Police. On the next page, we have some equipment to be replaced in our Division of Drug and Crime Control. And then below that, you'll see some equipment replacement for our crime lab. Equipment will be able to be moved over when we get the new crime lab built. We are going to pay for some one-time aircraft maintenance and training costs out of ARPA. We're also then you're going to see replace some fire safety vehicles, some high mileage vehicles in fire safety. We are proposing to buy cemetery equipment and replacement for our veteran cemeteries, various equipment. Most of that equipment was bought when we first built those cemeteries, which is 30-ish years ago, so we're seeing end life there. The next one is there is a World War II monument, or excuse me, World War I monument in Cheppy, France that Missouri is responsible for and is in need of repair. The one thing I will mention about this one is that it does require the state budget director personally oversee this. So, I mean, we can get that, but yeah, we'll get that in the language. So. The next one is purchase of some vehicles for the Children's Division. If you remember, we added FTE to the Children's Division last year. This will allow them to not have to use their own personal vehicles for state duty. The next one is a day treatment center in Hillsborough. This is the restoration of a village and a building and a cottage there to allow us to expand our services there. One of the things that Hannah talked to you about was we have money in this current year's budget for a warehouse. We bought a warehouse here in Jefferson City, but there is, with that, there's land and other warehouses there that we could expand to get even more leases collapsed. And so we see this as a good plan to help us reduce costs and be in control of more of our warehouses. The next one is $14 million increased transfer to the FMRF fund. FMRF is our fund that we use to maintain state buildings. Constitutionally required to transfer about $120 million, but we feel like when times are good, we should transfer more money into there because typically when times are bad, we suspend that transfer, and so this will help us accumulate some funds so that we can have money that for deferred maintenance when times get tough when we're not making that transfer. The next one here is for the Mississippi County Water Treatment Plant. This was actually put in 24 as funding for the St. Francis Healthcare Clinic. The community has come to us and said that the really the bigger need in the community is for their water treatment plant, and so they've asked us just to switch the language to that same dollar amount. We spent none of the money on St. Francis, and so they'd just like to switch it over to that. And then the last one is sort of a contingency plan for us. This is a $150 million transfer into the state road fund from ARPA. So this would be if some of these projects weren't going to go forward, this would give us a way to spend that money so we don't have to send it back to the feds. Right now, we expect all the projects to go forward, so this authority right now is expected not to be used, but if we don't get it in now, because we have the December 31st, 2024 date to obligate, that's our last sort of chance. So this is sort of a release valve in case some of the other projects can't be completed.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions from the committee on House Bill 20? Does not appear so. Dan, thanks
I
for
will
coming in.
say
Yeah.
that we have allocated all of the ARPA money, so our budget does allocate all of the ARPA money available.
Got it. Okay. I think that'll conclude the hearing for this morning. Thanks.
Stacey, we were just chatting about it too, so maybe that's the four of us? Yes.